is KCAL News, Los Angeles.
Now at 9, the president of USC meets with protesters after days of anti-war demonstrations. We're live at the campus where Palestinian supporters remain camped out tonight.
6 people killed in crashes just hours apart. Tonight, growing calls for improvements on one of LA County's deadliest roads.
And our in-depth reporting on America's child care crisis as centers across the U.S. close. Providers are pleading for help. What parents need to know about the future of this critical care. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Harvey.
And I'm Juan Fernandez.
Well, after almost a week of turmoil, mass arrests, and a campus lockdown, USC's president met face-to-face with protesters today.
Carol Folt called the talks meaningful, but protesters called the meeting deeply disappointing.
Well, KCAL News reporter Leslie Marin is live on the campus of USC right now with more from both sides of this campus conflict. Leslie?
Pat, Juan, late tonight we did get a statement from those students, not only calling this meeting disappointing, but saying it was a failure to students, staff, and the community. All while we are learning that the university's president has told LAPD not to mobilize on campus tonight. Behind me, you can see campus gates do remain closed, security standing just on the other side, but USC is peaceful. Student protesters remain camped out at USC for another night Monday, following their first meeting with the university's president since chaos broke out on campus last week. President Carol Folt confirmed she met with organizers of the student-led occupation and a faculty member for 90 minutes. In a statement writing in part, the students said at the end they wouldn't have considered this meeting a win from their perspective. And I can fully appreciate that. For me, the most important point was that we were starting to talk, and I think that was vital. The meeting follows the arrest of nearly 100 protesters after clashes with police on campus Wednesday. Over the weekend, crews had to clean up sidewalks and several monuments on campus, including the Tommy the Trojan statue, that were vandalized. We spoke to a student a part of the occupation on campus.
The school wants to villainize us and pretend that we're harassing students, we're causing a safety issue when there's a decent amount of students on campus who don't even know we're still here.
But on Monday, some students did have a tough time getting to campus, as many entrances restricted access to only students, faculty, and staff.
Completely locked everything down, and it has been not great since.
Obviously, security has been beefed, and despite the limited entrances, at least from where I live on campus, it's still relatively easy to get in.
There has also been more fallout when it comes to the university's commencement ceremonies. On Monday, author C. Pam Zhang and UCLA professor Sophia Noble withdrew from speaking at the Rossier School of Education's commencement ceremony, asking others to join their boycott. USC's main commencement ceremony has already been canceled, and it's left seniors like Will Myers scrambling to figure out plans as changes keep coming.
By the day, by the hour, absolutely. Like, every email is one that we're all kind of hanging on to see what's going to happen next.
Well, when it comes to that meeting, the protesters did go on to say that they felt like the president did not come prepared to address their demands. One of their demands being that the university divest funds from companies that may have ties with Israel. We know that the president and these students expected to meet again tomorrow afternoon. Reporting live from USC, Leslie Marin, KCAL News.
Thanks so much, Leslie. And across town at UCLA, the pro-Palestinian encampment continues tonight. Earlier this afternoon, around 100 students and faculty members were seen walking out of class in support of the demonstrators.
And Pat, in Orange County, students at UC Irvine have joined the pro-Palestinian demonstrations. This afternoon, some officers were spotted on campus near the encampment. But Irvine's mayor has warned the university against any law enforcement action to break up the gathering.
And in the epicenter of college protests, today students at Columbia University in New York City ignored a school deadline to dismantle their encampment or face suspension. School officials say negotiations with pro-Palestinian demonstrators broke down and warned in a letter this morning to leave voluntarily, but the protesters remain defiant.
And in Texas, more students at the University of Texas at Austin ignored a police command to disperse. Police used pepper spray as they arrested at least 100 people today.
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is under increasing pressure tonight from all sides over the ongoing war in Gaza. Far-right members of his own cabinet are threatening to drop their support if he accepts a ceasefire deal with Hamas. But the U.S. and the international community, along with many Israelis, are pushing him to reach an agreement to bring the hostages home. CBS News correspondent Deborah Patta reports from Jerusalem.
Under pressure and running out of options, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces mounting anger. Protests have ramped up on the streets of Israel with a vengeance, demanding he make a deal to bring those in captivity home, whatever the price. But hardliners in Netanyahu's ruling coalition say his job is on the line if he delays a Rafah invasion and negotiates with Hamas. His choice is stark: press ahead with Rafah or free the hostages, some of whom recently appeared in Hamas propaganda videos.
We are losing people that are alive now, and there is no time to waste.
There's been a flurry of diplomatic activity in the region, with Hamas also feeling the heat.
The only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas.
But once again, the Secretary of State made it very clear, without a plan to protect civilians, the U.S. does not support a Rafah offensive, saying the terrible suffering in Gaza must end. But with 3 strikes overnight and another this morning in Rafah alone, that feels very far away. Days and nights filled with the moans of injured children, the tears for tiny bodies wrapped in shrouds, and the silent pain of those who've cried far too much. Everyone here is sick of war and longs for it to end.
There has been an uptick in aid getting into Gaza, but the World Food Programme says people need a lot more, and it's not just food, but also urgent supplies to treat acutely malnourished children. Deborah Patta, CBS News, Jerusalem.
And developing news tonight, a tragic day in Charlotte, North Carolina. 8 law enforcement officers shot. 4 of them are dead. Police say the officers were looking for a fugitive and were serving a warrant at a home when someone inside began shooting. They returned fire and killed the suspect in the front yard. A second person then began shooting. After a 3-hour standoff, police got into the home and found a woman and a 17-year-old who were taken in for questioning. 1 U.S. Marshal died. 2 North Carolina corrections officers died as well, and so did a Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer. It is the deadliest day for law enforcement in the U.S. since the Dallas shootout in 2016, where 5 officers were killed.
More developing news back here at home. The LAPD has launched an extensive investigation after a patrol car was involved in a crash that killed a pedestrian. This happened this afternoon in Hollywood at Santa Monica Boulevard and Gower Street. Police say a car hit a patrol car, which caused it to spin and then hit a pedestrian. That person was taken to the hospital where they died as a result of their injuries. The LAPD is now looking into what exactly caused the crash. Well, tragedy now in the high desert. 6 people killed in 2 separate crashes in the Antelope Valley late last night on a dangerous stretch of road many locals call Blood Alley. Both crashes happened near Little Rock, about 10 miles east of Palmdale. One taking place on Pear Blossom Highway at 106th Street East, the other east of Hampville Road. KCAL News reporter Nicole Comstock is live along the 138, where there are new calls to make the road safer. Nicole?
That's right, Juan. You know, the victims have not yet been identified, but people here in town are still emotional about it because they've lost loved ones to this highway, too. They want the state to do something about this immediately. The drive through the desert is stunning at sunset, lined with Joshua trees here between Little Rock and Pear Blossom on the 138. But it's also known as a dangerous drive where many serious crashes happen. Sunday night, 5 people were killed in a collision here. The CHP says a driver with 3 other people in their car ran a stop sign at 106th Street East and entered State Route 138 right into the path of another car, killing everyone involved. And just hours later, a 6th driver was killed on the 138 when the CHP says they ran into a parked trailer near Hampville Road.
No family should have to live through that. It's terrible. And I'm dreading the day that It's one of my brothers or sisters.
Christopher Minsel has lost multiple friends to this highway. The president of the Pear Blossom Rural Town Council grew up in this small town and says the 138 has always been a source of anxiety.
I was taught when we cross the highway, we go on 116 and we look 1,000 times, and it's a game of Frogger for your life.
He says just 2 days before these crashes, Caltrans came out to the area with community members so they could point out specific dangers.
We walked it. We showed all the different things. We got out, we drove it. They're taking it very serious.
LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger is taking it seriously too, saying in a written statement, Caltrans and partner agencies have invested heavily in making needed improvements to this corridor, but there are still concerns. I commend community residents for calling for additional safety measures.
And if we need help with funding, then well, that's up to our state officials to make sure this is a state highway.
And Minsel says he thinks multiple safety features likely need to be added to this stretch of the 138 to make it safer for everyone. But in the meantime, he says people really just need to slow down. Reporting live tonight, I'm Nicole Comstock, KCAL News.
Nicole, thank you. Coming up, tornadoes leave a deadly path of destruction in America's heartland. Communities try to pick up the pieces before more severe weather moves in.
Ev?
We're going to have the latest on our forecast here at home, including warmer, drier conditions with wind in the forecast. We'll have the details coming up.
And I'm Simon Editor Mike Rogers at the desk. The LAPD looking for the person who stabbed a teen boy at a Metrolink station. The details ahead.
This is KCAL News, Los Angeles.
Now at 9, UCLA says enough is enough. It wants the protest camps to go, and tonight it is threatening to arrest and expel people who refuse to leave.
Urgent repairs needed to save a San Gabriel Valley dam that protects 1 million people from flooding. But tonight, one city is fighting that plan. The mayor of Pico Rivera explains why tonight.
And attention shoppers, a local dress shop will only let you try on clothes if you agree to be live on TikTok.
And tonight, the owner explains her unusual policy.
But we begin with that breaking news. Protests escalating at campuses nationwide. Tonight, police moved in on the epicenter of the demonstrations. Columbia University in New York, removing and arresting protesters. An alert sent from the school urged students to, quote, shelter in place for your safety.
And this comes after demonstrators barricaded themselves inside Hamilton Hall, smashing windows and doors and refusing to leave. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and local law enforcement officials say outside agitators have co-opted the protests. The school has threatened to expel any students involved.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Juan Fernandez.
And I'm Pat Harvey. At UCLA, it's been almost a week since protesters built a tent city, and tonight, university leaders say they've had enough.
UCLA leaders now say the camp is unlawful. They want everyone to leave, and if they don't, people could be arrested or expelled.
KCAL News political reporter Tom Waite is live at UCLA tonight with the very latest. Tom?
Hey, good evening to you, Pat and Juan. Yeah, the university making it very clear they want the protesters to leave this encampment. Tonight, quite a bit of commotion. You can probably hear it over my mic. It appears that the counter-protesters to the pro-Palestinian encampment are blaring music from one side, sounds like the national anthem, and then from the other side, it's possible that we're hearing some sirens playing, maybe from a megaphone. It's kind of difficult to tell where all the sound is coming from. But, Scotty, let's kind of show where things stand right now in terms of where the encampment is security-wise. You can see they've got security guards now between two sets of barriers, so there's kind of a neutral zone almost where you cannot get up to the actual encampment. So no one can enter the encampment. That's the idea right now from security guards. And of course people can leave, but then they cannot get back in. Whether or not police are coming here soon or at all, we just don't know. But tonight, the encampment, it's still here. A scuffle near the edge of the pro-Palestinian encampment as UCLA administrators issue a warning to protesters to get out.
What's wrong
Campus officials put it in writing, telling protesters in part the established encampment is unlawful and violates university policy. Law enforcement is prepared to arrest individuals. Non-UCLA persons are notified to leave the encampment and depart the campus immediately. We are asking students, staff, and faculty to leave the area. Students who choose to remain could face interim suspension that could lead to dismissal.
There's people from all walks of life here who, they've experienced hardships in their life and they can't comprehend what it's like being Palestinian in Gaza or West Bank right now.
Some Jewish students say the encampment is taking a toll.
It's wild to witness firsthand. It's gotten out of hand. It's gotten to the point where I can't even go to my classes. I can't study in the library. And it's dangerous. I agree with protesting on campus, but when you're actively having anti-Semitic occurrences on this campus, having all of these moments is really, really difficult.
A grad student who was in the encampment says they've also been targeted.
For security purposes, cannot let in agitators. We have gone through an immense amount of harassment by pro-Israeli groups and outside groups and through the counter-protesters, and constant harassment day and night. And it's just a glimpse into understanding what people on the ground in Gaza, what people for 75 years of Palestine have experienced.
I have Palestinian friends on this campus who are all for a two-state solution, and we've had very productive conversations. And it's, the people that I have met near the encampment, whenever we talk to them, that is not they're not willing to talk to us.
The protesters also released a statement saying that they will not leave. They say that UCLA is complicit, at least partially, in the Palestinian, as they say, the Palestinian genocide. They say that the campus is being aggressive in their posture and in their demands for them to leave. And they say they will not leave until their demands are met. One of those demands is divesting all investments in Israeli companies and in Israel, two-state solution. There's a number of other demands that they are making. There's also, on the other side here of the encampment, there is a pro-Israeli zone where they've got a monitor playing interviews with hostages that were taken on October 7th and then freed, and they're on that video. It's a montage of some of the horrors that they experienced there. So right now there's not a lot of people over there, but throughout the day and throughout the evening there have been people, of course, in both locations. But no signs of this ending right now, but we'll see how that all plays out. Reporting live on the UCLA campus, I'm Tom Waite, KCAL News.
All right, thanks so much, Tom. And over at USC, pro-Palestinian protesters are still camped out on campus. And for the second straight day, student protesters met with the school's president. Yesterday, President Carol Folt spoke with organizers of the student-led occupation and a faculty member.
Folt called the meeting meaningful, but student protesters said it was deeply disappointing. The president also added the LAPD was told not to mobilize on university grounds again, which remains restricted to students and faculty.
Well, tonight, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel for talks as the Biden administration presses Hamas to accept a deal to release some hostages in return for a temporary ceasefire. But CBS's Deborah Patta reports Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu still plans to push ahead with a ground invasion in southern Gaza, no matter what.
Protesters are turning up the heat night after night, demanding Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu bring the hostages home, whatever the price. For Netanyahu, it would mean delaying the Rafah invasion and alienating hardliners in his government, a price he's not yet ready to pay. We will enter Rafah because we have no other choice, he said today. As the Secretary of State lands in Tel Aviv, Hamas is weighing up the hostage proposal.
No more delays, no more excuses. The time to act is now.
He's here in a last-ditch bid to secure a deal to stave off the Rafah offensive and ensure Gaza is flooded with humanitarian aid. The threat of a ground invasion terrifies Adnan Abu Asi. He's done living as a refugee in Rafah and returned to what's left of his 4-story family home outside Khan Yunis today. Everyone's putting up a tent on top of the rubble of their homes, he said, because they want their lives back. Abu Asi has nothing and walks several hours a day to find water or a tin of food. But at least here he has dignity, he says, and his memories of what was once the most beautiful place in Gaza.
Also weighing heavily on Netanyahu's mind, local media reports suggesting the International Criminal Court may be preparing warrants of arrest for both Israeli and Hamas leaders stemming from the October 7 attack and the war in Gaza. Deborah Patter, CBS News, Jerusalem.
Our coverage of the Israel-Hamas war continues online at KCALnews.com, and you're streaming 24/7 on CBS News Los Angeles.
The parents of a 4-year-old Palmdale boy who was tortured to death have been sentenced. Jose Maria Cuatro Jr. was sentenced to 32 years to life in prison, while Ursula Elaine Juarez received 22 years to life in prison. They both pleaded no contest in March to murder and torture charges. Back on July 5th of 2019, the couple told investigators Noah drowned in the apartment pool. But when paramedics arrived, they found him unconscious and dry inside the family's apartment. He was taken to the hospital and died the next day. The boy's great-grandmother sued LA County, alleging that his death occurred after multiple reports of abuse had already been made to the Department of Children and Family Services. The Department of Children and Family Services previously said it's committed to safeguarding the thousands of children entrusted in their care.
A battle tonight between the city of Pico Rivera and the federal government. The Army Corps of Engineers is about to start emergency repairs on the Whittier Narrows Dam, but it means the city could lose its beloved sports arena, its golf course, and 68-year-old Little League program. KCAL News reporter Lori Perez is live in Pico Rivera with what people want before those bulldozers start rolling in. Lori?
Pat, when we got here earlier this evening, the fields, including the one behind me, were filled with teams playing, getting ready to play. Unfortunately, this is one of the areas that will be taken over by the dam project. Locals have known about this project for years, but time is running out for them to try to save what they can.
If they shut this down here, I don't know where we're going to go.
For more than 50 years, the Pico Boys Baseball League has been thriving.
My family's been here since the late 60s. I played in the 70s. I've been coaching here for about 21 years.
But this could be the last summer of play here in Pico Rivera's Streamland Park, as a massive repair and expansion project on the bordering Whittier Narrows Dam could begin next year. Construction staging and plans to widen the dam will take over the fields. The Army Corps of Engineers says the dam is at risk of eroding and needs critical repairs to prevent significant flooding for more than 1 million people. The mayor gets it.
Safety and security is the first priority.
But also knows the 5-year project comes with a cost of the fields and much of the city's municipal golf course, which also sits beside the dam. Both will close for construction and may never reopen.
City of Pico Rivera is losing approximately 57% of their park space.
And maybe most importantly, he says, the construction project could permanently cut off the only road to the historic and beloved Pico Rivera Sports Arena, a famous site for Mexican rodeos and other Hispanic cultural events. He wants the feds to restore the golf course and ball fields and pay for a new road to the stadium.
When I come and I see families and I see small children with their cowboy boots and their jeans and their lassos, I see cultural continuity. I see generations being given, being passed down, this tradition.
And there's really no delaying the project any longer. It's already been 5 years since in 2016, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers classified the dam as critically near failure. We are live in Pico Rivera. I'm Lori Perez. Back to you.
All right. Thanks so much, Lori. Former President Donald Trump fined thousands for violating a gag order in his New York criminal trial. Why the judge is warning jail time could be next.
Billionaires want to build their own city in California. Now that dream might be one step closer to reality.
And required to be live on TikTok. That's the policy at one downtown LA dress shop. Tonight we're speaking to the owner about why she says it's actually helping build relationships with customers.
And now we are getting a look outside right now. A beautiful night in Santa Monica, mild. It's been warm, but we are expecting some changes this weekend. We're going to be talking about an ever so slight chance of rain. When and where? Next.
We begin with breaking news, and you probably felt it. An earthquake hits the Inland Empire, but that quake was felt in Los Angeles and Orange County as well. Good afternoon, I'm Juan Fernandez.
And I'm Amy Johnson. This is KCAL News at 4, streaming on CBS News Los Angeles. Now, that 4.1 magnitude quake was centered just about 5 miles southwest of Corona.
And a lot of people are talking about what that jolt felt like. Let's go to KCAL News reporter Joy Benedict live in Corona with the very latest. Joy?
Yeah, that's right, guys. It certainly was a jolt. The good news is we're not having any reports of any injuries or significant damage here in this area from all the law enforcement and firefighters and everybody. But nonetheless, it certainly was felt, especially here in this liquor store here in Corona. You can see a couple of bottles were knocked over that haven't been righted yet. But of course, the big jolt did do a little bit of break-in when it came to the shelf. You could definitely hear that and see it, as the reaction was very clear when that shaker happened at about 1:49 or 1:48 this afternoon. Again, it was a 4.1 magnitude quake that struck Southern California. We're told the epicenter was located about 9 kilometers southwest of Corona with a depth of about 2 kilometers. Now, when it has that sort of a very quick jolt, that usually means it is happening very, very quickly. Again, no damage here, but a good reminder to all to stop, drop, and sort of get out when you can, when it's safe to do so. And that's exactly what they did here.
All right, Joy, thanks so much. We also spoke with renowned seismologist Dr. Lucy Jones. She told us that the area has actually been shaking since yesterday with smaller quakes.
So far, we haven't recorded any aftershocks, but we actually had quite a few foreshocks to the earthquake. There were about a dozen earthquakes that have been happening over the last day or two, right in the same location near Corona.
Dr. Jones calls them media quakes because they do get a lot of attention but cause little or no damage. She says it's a reminder for people to stay quake ready for when the big one does hit.
And meteorologist Olga Ospina joining us now with more on this quake. Olga, we were talking about it right after it happened.
That's right. Yeah, we were here in the studio. You and I did not feel it, but as we mentioned, a lot of people did, of course, in the Inland Empire and even here in the Los Angeles area. So I'm going to show you here a map of exactly where that earthquake happened. This is out in the Inland Empire, but you can see that it is also very close to Orange County. A lot of people in those areas also saw it. So near places like Anaheim, but in the immediate area, we do have places like Chino Hills into Mira Loma. This is exactly where that earthquake happened. And also important to note, not just the magnitude of the earthquake, but also the depth. So typically we do get these more shallow earthquakes. This was a shallow one, but that also does mean that we could feel it more, and we're also seeing more damage from it versus when we get those deeper earthquakes. Because those seismic waves have to travel further when we get a deep earthquake, they lose that energy along the way to the surface, resulting in us feeling it less. But this was a shallow one, and yes, it was over 4. We typically don't get too many over 4 here in California, right around 25 a year. So, yep, that was in Corona. And we'll take a look also at our forecast. Of course, I'm tracking the warm temperatures and how long that will last in just a few minutes.
It was a nice day. Okay, Olga, thank you. Now to this, no classes at UCLA today. They had been canceled following a night of violent clashes. This afternoon, there's a much bigger law enforcement presence on campus, all as a deterrent.
Law enforcement is under scrutiny, accused of not intervening fast enough.
Mayor Karen Bass cut her trip to Washington short to come back to deal with this crisis. KCAL News reporter Amanda Starantino has been on campus all day. She joins us live now from Westwood with the latest. Amanda?
Around the campus, a lot of emotions, I'm being told, from plenty of different students we talked to, both on camera and off camera. A lot of them feeling what happened last night in so many different ways. And right now, it's actually fairly calm. It's been calm all day. Plenty of law enforcement present, though, more than we saw at this time yesterday afternoon. But what we're seeing now is a much different situation than we saw overnight. After 5 nights of a pro-Palestinian encampment on the UCLA campus, violence erupts. It started around 11 p.m. Tuesday when counter-protesters began to take down the barricades around Royce Quad surrounding the pro-Palestinian camp. Fireworks were thrown, large sticks are seen used as weapons, and bear mace was sprayed by the dueling groups. Timon is a representative from within the encampment who says she is a third-year student at the university.
The university sent no protections for us, nothing at all. And so, yeah, there were people who had to immediately get medical attention. There were our own 20-year-old kids who had to learn how to deal with tear gas and pepper spray and start treating their own classmates and peers, and then we had to rush people to the ER.
However, she says they will continue their camp here until their demands with the university are met.
Our demands are clear. Our demands are divestment. They are a boycott of these companies. They are an end to policing, an end to repression. They are an end to the silence about the genocide, right? These are the things that we are fighting for.
Law enforcement agencies, including LAPD, LA Sheriff's Department, and the CHP, broke up the chaos around 3 a.m., separating the two groups. In response to the violence, UCLA canceled classes Wednesday, and midterms have been rescheduled.
It's here to want to go to class and use our library and be able to go into the Royce Hall, and it's a shame. We came here, we're paying all this money to learn, to use these facilities, to use the library, and we can't.
Students stood by the plaza, now barricaded off, as the pro-Palestinian supporters rebuilt their plywood walls around them.
Disgusted. It's really sad to see my Jewish friends trying to get to their classes and not being allowed to pass through just because they're wearing a Magen David on their neck. It's just really sad. People building chains with their bodies is nothing I ever thought I'd see. It's sad to see these parallels in 2024.
The University of California President Michael V. Drake released a statement saying in part that they will, quote, do all we can to protect these protests and demonstrations, but disruptive, unlawful protests that violate the rights of our fellow citizens are unacceptable and cannot be tolerated. No action has been taken by the university to clear the encampment or the pro-Israeli demonstration alongside it.
I'd like to see them do what they did at the other schools and send in the police and arrest the people who have been violent and clear the area. I mean, what they're doing isn't lawful. They're vandalizing our buildings, just taking over a public space.
I don't believe in loss of innocent life. That's not something I stand for. But this is atrocious, and this is not helping anything.
And Mayor Karen Bass did just release a statement reiterating her message from earlier, saying free speech will be protected, violence and bigotry will not. We also recently just heard from the UCLA Chancellor Gene Block saying that he's condemning the violence that happened here overnight, and they are conducting an investigation that could lead to arrests, expulsions and dismissals. He ended that statement with, quote, this is a dark chapter in our campus's history. We will restore a safe learning environment at UCLA. A lot of students we talked to said they would like to get back to class, but also understand students protecting their right to free speech. At this time, we do not know exactly when classes will be back, but as for now, there's no classes today. Live at UCLA, I'm Amanda Starantino, KCAL News.
Well, local Islamic leaders holding a news conference just moments ago. They're accusing UCLA of failing to protect Muslim students in the wake of the violence that unfolded last night. Here's a little of what they had to say.
What happened last night on UCLA's campus was appalling and concerning. A pro-Israeli mob attacked peaceful student protesters engaging in their free speech rights.
We are here to express our support and solidarity with all the students, regardless of their faith, regardless of their background.
Well, we've requested comment from the UCLA chancellor, and we're waiting to hear back on a comment about this.
All right, let's go across town now to USC, where a disturbing discovery was found outside of campus. Someone drew a swastika on a fence post. USC's president and the head of the university's largest Jewish group both condemned the action. It has now been removed. Meanwhile, the encampment on campus is still in place. Yesterday, President Carol Folt and protest leaders met for a second day, but it ended without any agreements. It's still unclear if any more meetings are scheduled. Well, the number of college campuses in SoCal with protest encampments in place still growing. SkyCal flew over a number of new spots. We saw encampments on the campuses of Occidental College and UC Riverside. And across the country, 300 demonstrators at Columbia University and at City College have been arrested in police crackdowns in New York. Officers stormed into Hamilton Hall that was taken over by protesters a day earlier. Meanwhile, new encampments are popping up in other states. Protesters have set up demonstrations on the campuses of the University of Virginia and the University of Texas at Dallas.
Well, today is May Day, or International Workers' Day, and to mark the day, there are a number of marches and rallies around SoCal.
In Hollywood right now, hundreds are taking part in a solidarity power march and rally. KCAL News reporter Jeff Nguyen is there live with more on their demands. Jeff?
So Juan and Amy, the marchers arrived at the Hollywood and Highland complex just a few minutes ago. We are right outside the famous Dolby Theater. You know, as you look around, some of the images that you see at this march are similar to some of the images that you have been seeing on college campuses in terms of what's happening in the Middle East. But the driving force behind all of this has been organized labor, and organized labor has been seeing a lot of big wins over the past year. It was a festive mood at the corner of Sunset and Gower, where Monica Sosa attended her first May Day march and rally.
I'm here today to support my mom. She's an immigrant fighting for her rights.
Her family would like to see immigration reform for undocumented people like her mom. Politics has been front and center in what's known as International Workers' Day. This year's event comes after the so-called Summer of Labor, when Hollywood actors and writers went on strike and won big. Nearly 3 weeks ago, workers at a VW plant in Tennessee overwhelmingly voted to join the United Auto Workers, the first time the union has had a presence in the South. And LAUSD support staff employees got significant raises last year after they went on strike. Labor leaders say this day was meant to expand the reach of organized labor like unionized Starbucks workers who are negotiating their first contracts with the coffee giant.
This is where we flex our power and stuff, right? Our strength is in our unity. So by people watching us do this, it should motivate people to be able to do this where they work at.
While labor groups were the driving force behind the event, we noticed plenty of people carrying Palestinian flags and wearing keffiyehs. Cliff Smith says he supports a two-state solution, but he believes the suffering in the war in Gaza between Israel and Hamas has been asymmetrical.
Workers stand with oppressed people wherever they are. Our slogan is that an injury to one is an injury to all.
The Sosa family recognizes immigration is a hot-button issue, but they also see it as a matter that's impacting working-class people.
And they might not be on an hourly salary. They might be getting paid under the table. They might not even be getting paid at all, you know?
Back here live, we would like to give you a little bit of context on these May Day marches and rallies. They started back in 1890, and originally that was to commemorate the violent end of a labor demonstration that took place in Chicago 4 years earlier. Now we are live in Hollywood. Jeff Nguyen, KCAL News.
All right, Jeff, and about 200 workers and activists from the Inland Empire took part in a May Day rally in Fontana today. Organizers say they want to bring attention to issues that affect workers in the IE, including immigrant rights, criminal justice reform, as well as the right for vendors to sell their products.
Here in the IE, we have a huge boom of warehouses. They come with promises of good jobs, but these jobs often are, they're not allowed to unionize. They're poor working conditions. So we're here on behalf of those workers.
And there are more May Day demonstrations that we're monitoring today, including a march in MacArthur Park. We'll bring you a live report on that one ahead at 4:30.
Next here at 4, a large church organization making a major shift in policy, a decision that could open doors to a whole new group of clergy members.
Plus, after months in hotels, Lahaina residents could soon be getting new homes after that devastating wildfire. And
Little Tokyo getting a little extra love. I'm Rena Nakano inside of a store that's called this place home for more than 60 years as the town gets added to the list of the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
This is KCAL News, Los Angeles.
Now at 4, cleanup continues this afternoon at UCLA after police dismantled a pro-Palestinian encampment on campus. More than 200 protesters were taken into custody in the early morning hours as law enforcement officers in riot gear breached the perimeter of the camp and slowly overtook the protesters. And now bulldozers are on campus cleaning up the mess that was left behind. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Juan Fernandez. Campus security is sticking around as there are fears that some of the protesters might return to reestablish the encampment there. We have team coverage on the UCLA protest aftermath. Jeff Nguyen is focusing on the arrests made, but first let's toss it out to Jasmine Veal live from UCLA as well with the campus cleanup efforts. Jazz?
And that's why you still have a ton of officers here. They are stationed at the entrances to all of the buildings here. And this right behind me is where those 200 protesters were arrested, the quad area. And you see all of the metal fences and barriers that are still set up to prevent those protesters from returning here. You have buildings locked down, classes that are being done remotely as the cleanup continues. And the UCLA Chancellor, Jean Block, says this community is reeling from days of violence and division. A quiet and mostly empty UCLA campus Thursday, except for cleanup crews after the pre-dawn crackdown. Police in riot gear swept into Royce Quad around 3 a.m. and tore down the week-old makeshift pro-Palestinian encampment that had drawn hundreds of protesters. They arrested those who chose to stay, like this man who explained why.
I just feel too guilty, like just living my life and not letting my voice out to for the Palestinians, and it's insane that the world's just tolerating over 40,000 dead, more than half of them children.
The university says earlier requests with demonstration leaders to remove the camp peacefully failed. Sasha Rabban, an Iranian Jew who says he's also a UCLA alumni, admits he was one of the pro-Israeli protesters who clashed with demonstrators Tuesday night. He wanted to see the cleanup.
I'm here today to see for my own eyes. I'll tell you the satisfaction that I get to come here after the last week of torture.
UCLA says it continues to investigate the violent incidents of the past several days.
Cleaning up what trash I can.
With campus still shut down, UCLA librarian Doug Daniels says he had to do something meaningful after the last week.
I absolutely support the students' right to camp and peacefully protest.
Around campus Thursday, graffiti still marked walkways and walls.
I've worked here a long time, love the campus. It's sad that it became like this.
I'm here inside one of the architecture buildings here on campus, and you can see how empty this hallway is that usually would be full of students as the end of the school year nears. And right outside this entrance, you can see even more graffiti that has been spray painted.
I'm shocked. I just don't understand how people could do something like this. It's a beautiful campus, and to deface it and just destroy it is just disheartening.
Kylie Stanley came to tour the campus with her parents since she will be a freshman here next year. She says they were given no notice that the campus would be closed. She says she hopes it can return to a place where students feel safe. UCLA Chancellor Jean Block also said this in a statement. The past week has been among the most painful periods of our UCLA community has ever experienced. It has fractured our sense of togetherness and frayed our bonds of trust and will surely leave a scar on the campus. And the Chancellor went on to say that he recognizes the significance of the issues behind these protests, the devastating loss of life in Gaza, and also says that he voiced his support for the Jewish students and the trauma that they have faced since those attacks on October 7th, and of course increasing what he called the painful spike in anti-Semitism. Live here on the campus of UCLA, Jasmine Veal, KCAL News.
All right, Jasmine, thank you. More than 200 protesters were arrested during the dismantling of UCLA's pro-Palestinian encampment. KCAL's Jeff Nguyen joins us live now from the Inmate Reception Center. Jeff.
So currently there are dozens of people out here in support of the people who have been arrested and processed. We would love to show that to you because this whole plaza is basically filled with supporters. However, right behind us, these people have decided to kind of block our view. So that is the situation right now. We have also reached out to the police departments that are involved in the arrest process to figure out how many people were actual students and how many people were outsiders, and we are still waiting to hear back from them. Some arrestees walked out to cheers as they were released from jail. Lawyers from the LA County Public Defender's Rapid Response Team were present to document any injuries outside LAPD's Metropolitan and the Sheriff's Twin Tower jails. Police say more than 200 people were arrested after a week-long encampment was cleared out on the UCLA campus. This student says she was inside when police moved in.
I saw many of my students being taken by force and being slammed to the ground. And so when it came to my turn, I did put a little force, but at the end of the day, I put my safety first, and so I let them take me.
The arrest came a day after a violent night at UCLA in which the chancellor said a group of instigators attacked the encampment. The pro-Palestinian demonstrators say they did not start the violence but ended up facing police, while agitators were not arrested.
I don't see anything unlawful about it. I think we were peaceful. We were just practicing our First Amendment.
Professor Jessica Levinson teaches constitutional law and the First Amendment at Loyola Law School.
Is the freedom of expression absolute?
The freedom of expression is not absolute. We dearly protect it, but it has to give way. It has to give way for reasons like public safety. It has to give way when we have to apply criminal laws.
We had barricades, we had shields made out of trash cans just to prevent being hit with batons, stuff like that. We were brutalized the night before, and we were scared of that happening again.
This student says he was serving as a medic at the encampment when he suffered a concussion the night before at the hands of counter-protesters.
I was clubbed 2 times in the head with a wooden 2x4 beam. I was pepper sprayed to the eyes.
The arrestees say the response from the university and police had been disproportionate because of who they saw ending up getting arrested.
That difference is quite striking, and it shows where the university's values truly lie.
And LAPD Chief Dominic Choi says that there were no serious arrests, and much like the arrestees at USC, all of these folks were booked for misdemeanors, so it is now up to the city attorney's office to decide whether or not charges will be filed. We also reached out to UCLA about complaints from the demonstrators in terms of how the treatment that they got was not even-handed, and we are still waiting to hear back from UCLA. For now, we are live in downtown Los Angeles. Jeff Nguyen, KCAL News.
All right, Jeff, thanks for that. It was mostly peaceful as police moved in to clear protesters, but there were some tense moments, including when officers used flashbangs to move a group right next to reporter Cara Finstrom. Well, despite this chaotic scene you see here, the majority of interactions that we saw between police and protesters were peaceful. Our coverage of the campus protests surrounding the Israel-Hamas war continues here at 4:30. Coming up, we'll look into the consequences for protesting students who were arrested on UCLA's campus. Meantime, President Biden says pro-Palestinian campus protests haven't prompted him to rethink his Middle East policies. He made his first public comments on the topic after that unfolded at UCLA.
This isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest.
Well, the president went on to say he hopes the protests remain peaceful. Now to breaking news. Officers opened fire on a man in Koreatown. Let's get right to assignment editor Mike Rogers at the desk with more on this deadly police shooting. Mike?
Yeah, Juan, we sent a crew down there, and the family of that man tells us that he was suffering a mental health crisis, and all the family wanted was help. We'll show you some video here from the scene. LAPD's Olympic Division officers say they responded here a little bit earlier this morning when the family actually called for help because that family member was having a mental health crisis. The man in his 40s apparently lives with his parents there. Mental health workers were already on scene, but then the man's brother tells us that the LAPD showed up, went in without those mental health workers, and shots were fired.
My brother was in their house, and then he's having an episode, so they needed 5150 him, but instead of that, they went and killed him.
Yeah, now the LAPD, I should clarified the brother there was critical of the LAPD officers for not using less than lethal force on his brother before they used lethal force. The LAPD not commenting on whether or not they did try to do that or really what exactly happened. The police department says the man here was armed with a knife when they went in, and that is what led to that shooting. Now, I want to remind you that the LAPD does release critical incident videos in incidents like this within 45 days of this incident. So within 45 days, we should be seeing the body camera videos from what exactly went down here. Meanwhile, Juan, they say they are also interviewing the mental health workers that were on scene to get exactly a fuller picture of what might have happened here today.
Yeah, all right, Mike, thank you. And I know you'll let us know when you get that video in. All right, thanks. Coming up, a retail theft bust. We were there as detectives moved in and found hundreds of stolen items allegedly connected to recent smash and grab robberies. We'll have the inside scoop ahead. Plus, nature is calling and our bodies are listening. The physical and emotional health benefits of getting outdoors. And a trend is creeping into the fashion industry, and experts say it's a lock to catch on. How human hair is being woven into clothes. Ev?
And we are getting a look outside right now. Beautiful day. We do have some changes in store, though, and maybe a slight chance of a shower. I'll have your forecast coming up.